Welcome to Jumping Bomb Audio.
Welcome back, everyone, to Jumping Bomb Audio. If you've joined us before, thank you for joining us again. If it's your first time, this is a podcast all about Joshi Pro Wrestling. Unfortunately, not a lot of Joshi Pro Wrestling is happening right now, so we're mostly going back through the archives, which we'll talk about. But I'm Aaron Bentley, if you don't know, and I am joined by Taylor Mainberg. How are you doing, Taylor?
Good. I'm happy to be here. Excited to talk about more classic Stardom.
Yes, that's largely what we're doing right now, is digging back through Stardom from the very beginning. So if you are just tuning in, 2 shows ago, I think we started with the first Stardom show ever in 2011. Last show, we watched a few more, and now we're going to watch 3 more Stardom 2011 shows. But the good news is, it looks like there might be some fresh content coming soon. Before we get to that, if you want to get in touch with us, you can follow us on Twitter at JBombAudio. You can find me at Aaron Like the Car and Taylor at TAMAIMBO. Tamaimbo.
That's right. You got it.
TAMA? No, I'm trying to do your name to the song that we're going to talk about later. I can't do it. This joke will land later in this episode.
It's going to come around and people are going to rewind and come back to this moment and they're going to really laugh.
They are. All right. You can subscribe to the show. Just search Jumping Bomb Audio on the podcast app of your choice, or subscribe to the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. You'll get us there. If you're using the Apple Podcast app, we would appreciate a rating and review. And if you'd like to donate to the show, you can go to redcircle.com/shows/jumping-bomb-audio. Not a Patreon, no extra content. Just if you're feeling generous and you got some money lying around and you don't know what to do with, give it to us or Maki Ito. Up to you. We'd like to start, even in these times, with Taylor telling us a little bit about what's going on in the modern Joshi world.
Well, so probably the biggest news of the past few weeks is Stardom announced that they are planning on having some shows, some no-fan shows, sometime at the end of May. They have not had a show in a few months, I think it is at this point. So they will be returning doing something. It wasn't exactly clear. Aaron, have you seen anything additionally? I feel like I just saw them announce, we're having some shows, but it wasn't exactly clear how many shows, how many matches, what they were going to do. I know they're going up on Stardom World, but that's really all that I saw. Did you see anything else?
No, that's really all we know. I want to say, I think that's it, if they're going to be on Stardom World. I'm not sure that there's going to be a live distribution of them, the way they did with No People Gate. We'll see how that goes. But no, I don't think we know a lot about it at this point.
So I'm assuming as we get closer, or maybe they'll film them, and after they film them, they'll determine how those will be distributed or how much content they'll have. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be a show or 2. Not clear, but I'm sure we'll find out more soon. Probably the other big news that just happened just the other day, Actwres Girls launched their streaming service. They have a brand new streaming service. It's at actwresgirls.net/app. A rare .net internet domain. So I went on. It's 1,000 yen a month, which is about $9 and change if you're in the U.S. I went in and subscribed just to check it out. One good thing that's a little bit different than a lot of Japanese streaming services is that whenever you sign up, whenever in the month you sign up, you get the full month. There's a lot of streaming services in Japan where they will always charge you on the first of the month. So it's always a waiting game. When you first sign up, you want to wait until the first of the month to sign up. In this case, whatever day you sign up, 30 days from that point, that will be your renewal period. So you can sign up whenever and be sure that you will get a full month for your money.
Kind of an interesting time to launch a streaming service, I would say.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought, well, they haven't had many shows, although looking on the service, they did put up a show, the March 22nd show that had never aired anywhere. So there's a little bit of new content, one sort of newer show. They also launched with, I think they have just about every show from the end of 2017 up until now. So there is a lot of content on it if you haven't seen a lot of Actwres Girls and you're interested in getting into it. I don't know how many new shows they'll be putting up for the next, few weeks or months, however long it is. But there is a lot of content on there to get you through if you're interested in that. I watched that March 22nd video, at least some of it, just to check it out, see what the player is like. It's a very smooth player. The quality is really good, especially because I'm so used to seeing Actwres Girls on Nico where the quality can be not so good. It was a nice change of pace from that. So it's a really great service. If you're interested, I would super highly recommend it. If you want to wait, if you're saying, well, there might not be new content, that makes sense, so maybe you wait. But it is worth it. It's very well put together. It's so easy to sign up. It took me about 2 or 3 minutes to sign up. I had no problems. So if you're interested, check that out. The other thing that has been happening, there's been some shows going on. Marvelous has been running their dojo shows every 2 weeks. They had a show on May 10th. Which was really fun. Those shows are nice and short. They run about an hour and they have 2 matches, so they're very easy to watch on freshlive.tv. Choco Pro has been running shows. Those have been great. They're available for free on YouTube. You can go back and watch all of them. I think now, I've lost the numbering in my head. I think they're through 13, and those are another show that they're usually about an hour or an hour and 15 minutes, and they have 2 or 3 matches, and they're a lot of fun. And Ice Ribbon has been running dojo shows, and actually this week brought back Peas Party. Now, for those of you who don't know, Peas Party was a concept that had been happening in Ice Ribbon for a little while. It was run by Tequila Saya, and back in the day, I guess you would say, the thought was that it was for wrestlers who had 3 years of experience or less. So it was a way to get the younger wrestlers, the rookies, get them more experience with these sort of dojo shows. Now all Ice Ribbon is doing is dojo shows. So they brought back Peas Party for Peas Party number 41. It's a fun show. It's about an hour long. They spend about half of it sort of doing wacky activities. They do a sort of soccer penalty kick shootout in the ring at one point, which is a bit strange. And then they have 2 matches. That is on the Ice Ribbon Nico channel, which is a separate subscription from the regular Nico channel where you get all the other promotions. But if you're interested in that, they have 2 fun matches. It's not just the people who are 3 years of experience or less, because Tsukasa Fujimoto is there, and they have some more of the sort of elder wrestlers. But that was a lot of fun and an easy watch. So if you're looking for more Ice Ribbon, I would recommend checking that out.
All right. Well, that's kind of what's going on right now. Unfortunately, there's just not a ton, so we're not talking about it much. But when those Stardom shows happen, I feel confident we will cover those right here on this show. But for now, we are traveling back to 2011, March of 2011. On March 2, 2011, Stardom held a press conference for what was supposed to be their show on March 12th. There was, some interactions with Yoshiko, because she was going to have matches with Arisa Hoshiki and Iris, the best wrestler in the world. And basically, Yoshiko starts out by saying that on the last show, the last Stardom show, Yoko Bito had 2 lousy fights. And Yoshiko thought that was unbelievable because it proves that Bito's fighting ability is shoddy and reduces her value. Yoshiko says she's going to get the crowd excited from the first match. So she's looking forward to it. If you don't remember, Bito started with like a similar thing of 2 kind of rookie matches. Hard to say, really, whether they were good or bad because we didn't get much of them on Stardom World. But, you know, a little way to add some interest here for these starting matches.
Yeah, it's sort of a unique concept to have 2 matches in a row. And if you're going to have matches that are fairly short, now, of course, as you said, we've been seeing them clipped even from sort of their short length. It's a way to get these younger wrestlers some sort of double experience on one show.
Right, and you get to have someone like Yoshiko appear and have enough that it's not that they just have like 1 3-minute match or whatever. So it makes sense for everybody involved. It's a small roster at this point. As we get into now having seen, 6 of the shows, it's like, wow, this does get somewhat repetitive with all the wrestlers because there's just not that many matchups you can do.
Yeah, and it's, as we'll talk about on the next show, it's about to get even smaller. Now we're coming up on a point where we're going to get another class of rookies, which will probably help. But for the moment, yes, it's I think there's a sense of them just trying to put together the different matchups while they have them. We talked about last time, there have been sort of feuds happening, Yoshiko and Yoko Bito sort of having this a sort of feud, but it's mainly been just trying to put different combinations of people together to have sort of new matches, and I think probably get a lot of these wrestlers more experience.
Right. The majority of the roster is rookies, so everybody kind of needs to get some reps, I guess, in the ring. So that's a lot of what we're seeing. Here is kind of what we were joking about earlier as Iris began to speak. So Iris, if you haven't listened before, I believe she's Mexican. They found her in Mexico. So I'm assuming that she's Mexican. Yoshiko tells Iris that she starts to speak Japanese and grabs her. Iris fights back and yells, "Kuru kuru pa," at Yoshiko, which apparently is similar to calling someone an idiot. Although we must give great guidance to our listeners that kuru kuru pa is an expression you should not use except in the closest of company, as there is a risk of being rude or upsetting someone, Taylor.
There is, although when Iris yelled it at this press conference, it was revealed that it was an instant hit amongst the attendees of the press conference. So a lot of big fans of Kuru Kuru Pa at the Stardom press conference.
So we started looking in more to Kuru Kuru Pa because, just wanted to figure out something else about it. And honestly, the internet is not terribly helpful to me regarding this. Of course, in Japanese, a lot of words have similar meanings. And have meanings that, or like the parts of words have meanings that just don't immediately reveal themselves to me as a non-native Japanese speaker. For example, the kuru kuru part of this phrase indicates something spinning around and around. The funniest thing in this website that I was reading about kuru kuru pa is the person writes, "I've been told it has a faster, lighter feel than guru guru, though besides that, they have similar meanings." This language is just impenetrable to me.
It is really wild that I guess you could call someone Guru Guru Pa? I don't know.
I feel like I don't know. Why would I even try to guess? I mean, I have no clue. Who knows?
Well, when I I don't read Japanese really at all. Yes. So I've been mainly running these through Translator. And when Kuru Kuru Pa came up, I thought maybe it was just like in the US, like you might say someone yells like, ah, like sort of just a noise. But I thought it's so specific to write kuru kuru pa. And then, of course, we looked it up and found out that it's, this word that means calling someone an idiot that's, somehow worse than, saying baka or, sort of the more well-known word for idiot in Japanese. So it's really a wild time looking up kuru kuru pa this week.
Yeah, so this is interesting. This same website that I'm reading says it's notable that there is a gesture in America where one points a finger to the head and swirls that finger around, which also indicates lower intellect. So you have the spinning around of kuru kuru, and the idea, you know what I'm talking about, Taylor, where you kind of like, that person's crazy,
Yeah. I don't know that I would say in America we use that to indicate lower intelligence.
I think it's meant to say that someone is crazy, right?
Yeah, you're like, oh, this person's crazy, but I don't know that when I say, oh, this person's crazy, I mean, oh, this person's dumb, right?
I think that's fair, but you can imagine, or you can see like how it could be derived, or how the two meanings could have derived from similar places.
Although
the
now
spinning around of kuru kuru.
Yeah, now I'm imagining Iris as she's fighting Yoshiko at this press conference doing that motion in the middle of the fight.
Well, we also, in our just extensive research about kuru kuru pa, came across a Hatsune Miku song called Kuru Kuru Pa. I have tweeted it out on our JBA account. I suggest everyone listen to it. It rules. And it basically involves Miku just going, Kuru Kuru Pa, over and over again. And that's what I was trying to do with Taylor's Twitter name earlier. The best, I was trying to think about it as you were talking earlier, and the best I can think of is like, T-A-M-A-M-B-O.
Well, you have the easy one, because you could do Aaron like the car, Aaron like the car.
Yes, that's true. That's very good. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so there you go. That's Kuru Kuru Pa. Don't say that. Don't, like, when you go to Japan, don't just say that to someone. Poor choice. Okay, next up, they had part of this press conference about the pending Eri Susa versus Nanae Takahashi match. Apparently, this was a lot about the fact that Susa is so young and was doing school and wrestling at the same time. And this leads to an exchange where Susa just asked Nanae if she knew a bunch of different like mathematics things. And here's my question to you, Taylor. Okay, the first one, for example, Susa says, do you know what the ratio of circumference in mathematics is? Would you have been able to answer this, Taylor?
Probably not, but the answer is 3.14, which I guess is something I know. I don't know if I would know it by ratio of circumference.
What about...
Like, I don't know if this is maybe a translation
well, sure.
thing, but maybe if it was like, do you know what the radius of a circle is or something like that. But I don't know if I would know it right off the top of my head. So,
well, what about, do you know how to find the area of a triangle?
I did know. I mean, now I'm sort of looking at the answers because Nanae did answer this, but I did know that you cut it in half. I mean, if it's I don't see. I'm going to reveal myself as
a real kuru kuru pa.
Yeah. As forgetting the different types of triangles, but
well, you got your isosceles triangles.
What's the one where all the sides are even?
I wish I hadn't started this. I think that's isosceles because acute means the angles are below 90 degrees and obtuse means they're more than 90 degrees.
Because I remember that for some triangles, it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Which is then you get the But that's not the area of a triangle. That's the length of the one side of the triangle.
I don't know anything about triangles. I want to be clear. I know nothing about this. So it's funny because she keeps asking her these questions, and Nanae says, "Are you making fun of me? I went to elementary and middle school." And I'm like, okay, I went to those schools too, and I could not have answered this question.
But also, I went to high school and also went to college. So you know, I don't know. How many times did you talk about triangles in college? Never.
I don't know. I had the only math class that I took in college was like a really low level math class because I don't like math. I'm not good at it, and I never went to class. My only recollection of the class is showing up one day, and I hadn't been in weeks, months, who knows, and there was an exam, and I get the exam, and I'm kind of looking at it, and I don't know any of the answers, and I just wrote on the test like, I don't know any of these answers, and just turned it in and left. So that's my math talent, which is minimal. And yet, I'm a lawyer, so there you go.
There you go. Math is not important.
No, 40% is all I have to know in lawyering. I figured that out. So anyway, they go back and forth about whether Nanae knows things about triangles, and Sousa defends her ability to use her head in school and in wrestling.
Yes, because the big debate was, is she spreading herself too thin, essentially, by going to school and doing pro wrestling, that maybe her pro wrestling would suffer because she has to focus on school as well as training and all of that.
But what about Haruka? I mean, if anybody's spread thin.
Well, she's only doing 3-minute matches, so she has a little bit of a... She has a little bit of a easier time there.
True.
Also, 8. What grade are you when you're 8?
Like 3rd grade?
3rd grade is easy.
Is it?
It's not like being a 16-year-old like a sophomore in high school.
You said it with such disdain. It's 3rd grade.
I mean, am I wrong?
Easy. I don't know. I didn't go to 3rd grade, Taylor. I don't know whether it's hard.
You didn't go to 3rd grade?
I did not.
Oh. Is there more to the story? Did you skip it?
Oh, yeah, I just skipped 3rd grade.
Aaron. Aaron.
What?
Aaron, I'm becoming distrustful of you.
Why?
Frankly. You told me that weird story about Iris last week, which I still don't know if it's true or not. And now you're telling me you skipped 3rd grade?
Okay, I really did skip 3rd grade.
Because you were so smart?
Well, I switched schools.
Okay.
I came to the new school for 3rd grade. They sent me to the 3rd grade classes. And then the teacher would say, well, we want you to go to 4th grade for math or for reading or for whatever. And then suddenly I was in all the 4th grade classes. So then they brought my mom in and they just said, hey, we're just going to put Aaron in 4th grade. And then they did. That was it.
Wow. That's quite impressive.
I mean, it's 3rd grade, right?
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I guess it's not
that serious. So this whole thing started with you saying 3rd grade is easy. So, you know. The worst part of it was 3rd grade at the school that I had switched to. The big field trip at the end of the year was to the zoo, and I didn't get to go. So
where was the 4th grade trip?
I don't remember. All I remember is that I missed the zoo trip.
Oh.
It haunted me my whole life.
Oh wow! Have you never been to a zoo since?
I mean, I have.
Okay.
I've been to many zoos, but.
Humble brag.
Yeah, I probably go to so many zoos to make up for not getting to go to the 3rd grade trip. I think it was to the Cincinnati Zoo, I believe the trip was.
I think I went to the Cincinnati Zoo, but I think I went to the Cincinnati Zoo in 8th grade.
Wow. I guess we were more advanced than you.
Well, we were going to go to Washington, D.C., and that was right after 9/11.
Sure.
So we didn't.
Wait, you're quite a bit younger than I am.
I guess.
Because I think...
Well, no. Yeah, I guess I am.
Well,
because what year was I in 8th grade? That was
apparently 2001.
No, 2002.
Okay. Well, I graduated high school in 2003, so...
Yes, you are older than I graduated high school in 2007.
Okay. And the only reason I thought of that was because we were planning a trip to go to Greece in high school, and then 9/11 happened, and they would not let us go to Greece. So,
two friends doing a podcast together learn each other's ages on air.
What's funny is I think you've said your age on this show before.
I did in the very first episode.
Yeah, but I don't remember it. But you're 30-something, right?
I am. I'm 31.
Well, I'll be 34 next month.
And I'll be 32 in September.
But I'd also skipped a grade, you know. So
now, someone who listened to our first episode said we shouldn't talk about how old we are, and now we're breaking that rule. So to that person, if you're still listening, apologies.
What was the concern, or what was the...
I think it was that we should appear ageless and, sort of, like idols, we shouldn't talk about how old we are because then we can be any age that the listener wants us to be.
That's a fair point. I was on Yusuke Aikawa's Instagram page today, and she's still doing some sort of idol group, or at least she was recently.
I didn't know that. You found her Instagram?
I mean, she's got like a blue checkmark Instagram page.
What? Okay,
yeah.
Now I'm opening Instagram. I hope my phone doesn't make any noise. Did you just look her up by her name?
Yeah, I just typed in Yusuke Aikawa, and it was like the first option.
Oh.
Yeah, she's like a total normie. She's got kids, and basically all her posts are about like stuff she does with her kids.
Although she still looks like she's ripped.
Oh yeah. Well, she had a post that was like, "Here's me really pregnant," and then "Here's me ripped to shit." Pretty impressive.
I will say, this is sort of related to what we'll talk about, but Stardom's 10th anniversary is coming up in January of next year, right? I hope she comes back for something, just to maybe even like show up and be like, "Hey, I'm here. Remember me?"
I went back far enough in her Instagram that I saw she went to a Stardom show. It was either in 18 or 19. She went to one, and she had a picture with Rossi, and then with Arisa and somebody else. And then she's also gone to a DDT show recently. So she's still interested in the world of pro wrestling.
Well, that's good. I hope she shows up. That would be a fun nod to history, I think.
It would.
You can't bring Yoshiko back, so...
No. You cannot. Maybe one day. So anyway, the show that was going to be on March 12th was delayed to April 30th because of the Great East Japan earthquake, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake. I was not aware of this earthquake until preparing for this show, Taylor.
It's actually funny because I think this was before all of our current situation happened. This was really the last thing, I think, in Japan that affected shows like this, and that shows were delayed. Now, it was a much smaller delay, and it's usually, for Stardom, it was just one show that got moved to April. But I think because when people were talking about, we're shutting down for, the virus, and the last time we did this was the big earthquake, which also caused a big tsunami. So that's, what people were talking about. So I knew of it from that, but I didn't know that it had happened. I didn't know exactly when it had happened, and it had happened in March of 2011.
So they weren't able to do any practices or group training until March 25th. So about 23 days off, and then the March 27th show occurred, which is the first show that we're going to talk about. They're back at Shinkiba. Every show's been at Shinkiba so far, 320 fans. They kind of settled in around this number after doing 466 fans, I believe, on the first show. They're kind of in the 310s to 330s on every other show, which, it's interesting to me. It's different to go back and watch all these because you start to notice, for example, that a lot of the wrestlers do a lot of the same spots in every match. You're kind of seeing similar things, but people weren't consuming Stardom in that way at the time. You know, it's like you were going out to watch these shows, and maybe you hadn't been to any of the shows before. But it strikes me as a promotion that was essentially, I don't know if you agree with this, but it seems to me like the draw of the promotion was coming to see Yusuke Aikawa wrestle.
Yeah, and one interesting thing is, you know, we're going to talk about 327, and then they had a show on 4/3, and then they had a show on 4/10. I always think of sort of promotions in Japan that start up, and they say, oh, we're going to run an event in, you know, one in January, and then we'll have one in February. But Stardom already is, I mean, a pretty rigorous schedule, considering they delayed a show. I mean, this is sort of a big break between the last show we covered on the previous episode and this show, but only because a show was delayed. And now, you know, 327, 4/3, 4/10, that's 3 shows in 2 weeks for a promotion that's less than 6 months old, which really was sort of surprising to me.
Yeah, and has like 10 wrestlers on the roster.
Yeah, that as well.
All right. Well, as promised at the press conference, they started out with Yoshiko taking on Iris, and then Yoshiko taking on Arisa Hoshiki. These were, you know, just normal matches. There wasn't much special to them, but Yoshiko, as I was watching her do the face wash on Iris in the first match, I was realizing that I just love every wrestler who does the face wash. That's like just a move that's always over with me. But Yoshiko won both of these with I think it's called a head and arm choke. I don't have Mike here to tell me the names of moves.
And I'm bad at that as well, so I'm not going to be any help.
Move name, Kuru Kuru Paz.
Yes. Aaron, I'm going to upset you right off the bat with my first comment.
Don't you dare do this.
I said Iris somehow looked worse in this match with Yoshiko. She keeps doing the weird thing where she appears to be getting whiplash whenever she runs the rope, like her head snaps back. But also there was a moment when she started running one direction and then realized she was going the wrong way and just sort of stopped and turned and started running the other way. Anyway, it was very bad, but it was short, so who cares at the end of the day. Yoshiko versus Arisa, I thought was pretty well put together. It was short, but I think it showed both of their strengths. Arisa got a lot of offense in with her kicks, and then Yoshiko, you know, sort of pulled it out at the end with the choke. So I actually thought that was a pretty good match, especially for these sort of shorter, clipped opening matches that we've been seeing.
Yeah, this is the first Iris match that I can't defend. She was not very good here. I'm very sad to say. And, you know, it may affect her standing in the JBA rookie rankings.
Ooh,
I'll
tease
that now. So next up was Haruka taking on Sakura Hirota. And the funniest part to me was that this was the longest video file so far on the show, even though we knew how it would end, of course, which was in a time limit draw.
My one note that I have written down literally is a time limit draw. Can you believe it? Lots and lots of time limit draws. I have to say, and I guess this sort of goes into the next show as well, but they sort of apply to both. I sort of am not digging the more comedic Haruka matches. I like the more serious ones, so these are sort of not my style, I'll say.
Wow, down on Haruka already.
Well, down on putting her with only comedy wrestlers who just sort of fuck around the whole time.
You want to see her have a 20-minute match with Yoshiko?
Also I have this other complaint, which I just remembered and I didn't write down. They go to a time limit draw, and Haruka's just sort of like, well, okay, and she bows to the audience, and she leaves. I'm like, show some fire or something, like ask for 3 more minutes or something.
I mean, she is 8 years old. Let's not be too hard on her.
I know, but I was sort of like, oh, it's the end of the match, and oh, she's just leaving.
Well, also these early shows, and this starts to change by the third show we're going to talk about. There's not much production on what we're seeing on Stardom World, so we're not really seeing much before the match or after the match. Too much. So who knows? But
maybe she went backstage, started throwing chairs around. So
yeah,
I mean, it's certainly possible.
Maybe she cut just like one of the greatest promos of all time backstage. Who knows? Next up, Nanae Takahashi taking on Eri Susa, the beautifully built match. And here's my big question with this. Nanae wins with the splash. Did Eri Susa do the first submission hold idol pose in Stardom history?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think so. I can't remember any other ones.
I think so too.
I think you're right. Wow. Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, big moment for her. I really got the sense that she was gaining confidence in this match.
I also wrote it's the best that she's looked to me. Now, I thought she still didn't look all that great. But it was the best she's looked. But as I said last episode, if you go in there with Nanae, you're probably going to look the best you look. Nanae is willing to bump for everyone in a way that makes them look really good, have a bunch of near falls. So I think it's the best that she's looked, but I don't know that it was a very... I was sort of like, oh, she looks better than she has before, but she's against the best wrestler in the company, and it's just one match. Not to be a negative Nancy.
We're getting grumpy Taylor on this show. I'm not sure what happened. I'll pull back the curtain a little bit. I know you had lunch before we started, so it's not that you're hungry and grumpy. So I'm just confused about all this negativity coming from you.
Look, I gotta tell my truth. I gotta let my truth out.
Well, it's a grumpy truth, Taylor. All right, the main event of this show was Yusuke Aikawa and Natsuki Taiyo taking on Yoko Bito and Mayu Iwatani. Aikawa pinned Mayu with a spin kick. You know what? I think you're starting to see, we talked about Eri Susa looking like she gained some confidence. I feel like during this time off, they turned up the charisma dial on several of the wrestlers. I thought you saw a little more charisma out of Mayu in this match too.
Yeah, I thought that Mayu in all three of these shows started to look like she's putting something together. And I think it was most prominent in the third show that we'll talk about, but she has sort of interesting offense that looks different than a lot of the other wrestlers who are a lot of kick-based offense for the other wrestlers. And she's starting to do sort of more of the high-flying offense, but definitely looks like she's putting it together now. I don't know how much of that is because we know eventually she puts it together. So I don't know if it's maybe not hindsight. I guess that would be hindsight bias. Hindsight bias? Foresight bias?
I don't know.
But that we know she puts it together, so we see something that she does well and we say, oh, that's really good, as opposed to someone we know doesn't do well and we say, oh, that's a fluke of, this one match. Like Eri Susa, it's like, oh, she looks better, but, we know that she doesn't turn into someone like Mayu. She's not, the ace of the company, so maybe we dismiss it. So I don't know. Just something to think about. This main event, I don't know how you felt. Aaron, you think I'm grumpy, but I love this match.
Really?
I went 4 1/4. I went 4 1/4 stars.
I thought this was probably the weakest main event so far.
Oh, wow. No, I just loved it. Yusuke, very close to the beginning of the match, did a spin kick, front kick, axe kick combo, like all in a row. They all missed. And I was still like, whoa, that's really cool. It didn't hit anyone. It didn't hit Yoko, who I think she was in the ring with. But I was like, wow, that's awesome. She looks really cool. One thing I also have to say is Natsuki Taiyo. I think we haven't talked much about her. I think that she's probably the most underrated person in the company right now. She goes out there. She always has good matches. She's high energy. And to me, every match she's in, I'm excited to see because she brings that energy. She really feels like She's there, even though she's, doing all these moves. She's not leaving the other wrestlers behind. She's not just running around the ring as they stand around. So I really like that. I thought there were some great kicks that did connect in this match. Yoko Bito and Yusuke hit each other with double high kicks at one point with a loud thud. And I went back and forth trying to figure out who had hit who to create that thud, and I couldn't figure it out. But it was just like a lot of the other matches I've liked so far. It was hard hitting, lots of kicks. So I thought it really delivered, and I thought it was a lot of fun.
See, that's funny because I thought this was maybe the weakest outing for Yusuke Aikawa so far. And it was that exact exchange where I was like, oh, that looks less smooth than you've looked in previous matches. The kicks that all missed. So that's just very funny.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Moving on to the Stardom show on April 3rd, 2011. It opened up with Arisa Hoshiki taking on Eri Susa. And I thought that Eri looked much better than she had before, even with someone not as polished as Nanae. Arisa did win with that kick she does off the top rope that I hate.
Yeah, I thought Eri looked better as well. It was clipped, so I didn't really have much else to say. But yeah, I also thought she looked better against Arisa. Yeah.
Next up was Haruka taking on Ebe-san. Not really confident on my pronunciation here. But this is Kikutaro, right? Or were you fucking with me? This really is Kikutaro.
No, it is. He changed his name after he left Osaka Pro, I think in 2005, because I don't remember if he lost the name or if they had the rights to the name. It was something with Osaka Pro had the name, and so when he left, he changed the name. He went through a couple names before ending up on Kikutaro, I think.
Can't say I'm up on my Osaka Pro history.
Yeah, I'm not either. So if that's incorrect, tweet at us and tell us we're wrong.
Unless we are Kuru Kuru Pa.
But if you don't tweet at us, then I'll assume that we're geniuses and we're correct.
Yeah, and we'll just continue to repeat it on every subsequent episode. So this went to a time limit draw. I appreciated, I'm going to call him Kikutaro, I appreciated his willingness to just be an asshole to Haruka. That was funny to me.
My note was, I'm bored of these.
Well, yeah, that too. But I'm trying to come up with something here, Taylor, you know?
Well, I'll say I'm bored of these, but actually in the next show I'll have more to say. But I was just sort of like, oh, it's another sort of comedy 3-minute. But weirdly enough, a 3-minute time limit draw, and the video file that we saw was only 2 minutes and 54 seconds.
Wow.
So maybe some clock management going on somewhere, some iffy clock management happening in Stardom.
We've gone from grumpiness to time limit trutherism. Wow.
Conspiracy theory.
Wow. Well, that's what happens, when you let negativity run your life, Taylor.
Look, you didn't like that last main event, and I did.
Next up was Mayu Iwatani taking on Yoko Bito. Bito won with the spin kick, and this was really where I started to see, oh yeah, I'm seeing the same exact Mayu spots. Like that, whatever, the moonsault off the ropes,
Yeah, I said rope-assisted flipping arm drag.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Because I had that same note. I said, Mayu's starting to put it together. She has that. And I was sitting there going, what would you call that? And that's what I came up with. And that's what I'm going to say is the correct name of the move.
I mean, it's almost like an Asahi moonsault, but she's not doing a moonsault.
Yeah, I thought it was good. She is doing the same spots, but as I said for the last show, she sort of has the most unique offense now of all the wrestlers, all the young wrestlers in Stardom. So it was something where I'm like, oh yeah, this is going pretty well. I still don't think she's the most talented, but I think there's something there where if I had seen her before, you might say, well, she's not the most talented, but she seems to have a lot of potential to grow from the fact that she's gone from the first show. Now we're in the fifth show. Is that what show this is? The fifth show? And I'm seeing things. I'm like, oh, it's someone who's starting to put things together.
Yeah, it strikes me just being able to watch this. It is with hindsight, but being able to watch it from the beginning is that I wonder if she was hanging out with Natsuki Taiyo during this. Like, I feel like she's kind of incorporating some of the offense that Taiyo does in a way, which I think is good and like a positive thing that she's taking little things from different people.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know how involved Taiyo was in training or, being involved. I don't know if she was just brought in to be a body for this sort of small roster. But yeah, I think you could draw the parallels between the two of them.
I thought this was a pretty fun match overall. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The main event, and I thought this was the best match.
Hold on. You skipped a match.
Whoa. Did I?
You skipped a match of your favorite wrestler of all time. Did you not watch this match? Actwres versus Natsuki Taiyo?
I don't have any notes about it.
Wow.
Oh, wait, no, I do. I take all that back. I did skip a match.
You've abandoned her so quickly.
No, I would never abandon her.
Damn.
Natsuki Taiyo taking on Actwres. Taiyo won with her moonsault. Yeah, I mean, it just hurts a little, Taylor, because just not Actwres' best outing on this little run of shows.
Well, I had two notes. The first note is Actwres does a dive to the outside.
Yeah.
And I believe I was rewinding and fast forwarding, trying to be sure of this. I think Saki Kashima is one of the rookies at ringside.
Interesting. I didn't notice that.
It was just weird. I saw someone, I was like, oh, that looks like her, but I don't know. Maybe it wasn't her. I could be wrong, but I rewound and fast forward a couple times, and I was pretty sure, but maybe I'm wrong. Another thing is, Aaron, I don't know if you know this, but this is the end. This is it. This is the end of Actwres' career.
That's very sad for me. I'm a big Actwres fan.
She goes out, as you should, as you're taught, on her back, giving Taiyo the win.
That's right. She was a big star, but she's giving the rub to Taiyo. It's really helpful to the promotion. You have to respect it, and it just cements her status as one of those all-time what could have been wrestlers.
Sure, we'll go with that.
We didn't mention this was Stardom's first show outside of Shinkiba First Ring and outside of Tokyo. Now, this is in Osaka.
That's right. Quite exciting. I was eager. I was like, oh, now they're going to go different places. And then the very next show, which we'll talk about in a minute, is back in Shinkiba.
Yeah, it was nice to see a different venue and just feel a little different, than what you were normally seeing. But yeah, pretty quickly they just went right back to Shinkiba. So the main event of this show, and I thought this was the best match of the first two shows, was Yoshiko Natsuki Taiyo taking on Nanae Takahashi, Yusuke Aikawa. Yoshiko pinned Aikawa with the senton splash.
I know, a shocking result, at least to me, it was.
It was to me also.
Hard to believe. I said this match was clipped as well, which I said I wish it wasn't. I was trying to figure out, Aaron, these matches, I would assume the promotion has the full matches. If they're filming, they don't just stop filming in the middle of the match and then start again. Do we think that they're clipped because the parts that are clipped are not good? Or, like, I was trying to figure out, wow, almost every match on this show is clipped, even the main event. Like, the main events in the past few shows that we've watched have all been, I think, at least mostly complete. So I was just wondering, do you think there was, like, they messed something up or something went wrong, or they just thought it was too long and they're like, we're just going to put up the best 11 minutes we have?
I don't know. My best theory is that this is it's not the samurai footage, is it?
I don't know. I don't know the
Maybe.
background
Could've been-
of.
Well, Samurai is there. I know I see the guy in the Samurai shirt filming. So Samurai is definitely filming their stuff for TV. So I just wonder if we're just getting the TV edited version of the shows.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know why they would get to put that footage up on their streaming service. So I don't know.
That's
That makes
my
sense.
question: is would Samurai allow them to put up old Samurai footage on a streaming service? I don't know if they would or they would not. So I don't know. I guess it could be, but then we're only talking about would Samurai air a 45-minute show?
I don't know.
Seems very short for Samurai, which I'm so used to being about 2 hours. But I don't know. Maybe they were like, "Hey, we want to do a 1 hour show." I don't know. Maybe someone out there knows and can let us know. Did these shows air on Samurai, and is this the Samurai footage? Is the other question.
So since there aren't a lot of like real stories in the promotion so far, I've just started making up my own stories. And this is where I really came up with my first big story that is just my complete headcanon. And that is that Yoshiko is working her way through like the more femme wrestlers in the promotion. She is the anti-femme ass kicker is what I have decided to refer to her as. And she starts that here by pinning Aikawa, and on the next show she's going to get a match against Nanae, who I've decided is the queen of the promotion. So that's my thought. I think it's interesting that Yoshiko is a rookie like all these other people, but she just kind of came into wrestling fully formed. Like, there's this, she knows who she is from day one, like her character, everything. And there's this spot in this match where, they get Aikawa tied up in the ropes, and it's the normal thing, where they put their feet into, or their boots into the person's head on both sides, but instead they do it to Aikawa's boobs. And I'm just like, this is such fucking Yoshiko,
Well, and then does it again in the corner where she just stands. She just stands on her boobs, and I'm like, ooh, that looks very painful.
Yeah, but Yoshiko was just like, she knew what she was from day one. And my headcanon is she's just trying to destroy the more feminine members of the roster.
Interesting. It is weird that I do sort of see them setting these things up. You see sort of Yoshiko and Yoko Bito continuously, if not facing off against matches. You had the press conference where Yoshiko's like, Yoko Bito is shoddy and her value is low. I don't know what's coming up because I haven't looked ahead as a choice, just because I sort of want to see it develop show to show. So I don't know if they'll go back to that, if that's maybe a story that they're like, hey, we just want to get some experience and then we'll go into story. So that'll be interesting to see when we get to the point when sort of more concrete stories start happening. Maybe that's when they start having titles and things like that, because that lends itself to pretty easy storytelling. But we'll see. But yeah, a lack of sort of show-to-show overarching stories in terms of who's facing off against each other.
It reminds me a lot, and not just because of who we're going to see on the next show, but it's like it's got a real Sendai Girls feel to it, the early part of this promotion. You will get feuds over the main title in Sendai Girls, but a lot of it is just like, here's our small roster, and they're going to wrestle each other.
Yeah, I can see that. That actually is a pretty good comparison. In that they really have the titles in Sendai, and other than that, it's just sort of, not thrown together, but sort of who's available that we can put in sort of the undercard matches. So yeah, that's a good comparison.
Right down to Hirota showing up on a lot of the shows.
Although I think Hirota I think that's it. I think her Stardom career is done. I would have to look it up, but I think that might be it.
What a run.
A legendary run, 6 total minutes of in-ring action.
Well, maybe less. Oh, no, that was the Kikutaro match. Sorry. So 272 fans for the Osaka show. We have really nothing to compare that to at this point, but we'll see how that plays out. They come back on April 10th, 2011 to Shinkiba. They draw 330 fans for, at least from the Stardom World footage perspective, the longest show of Stardom's run so far, and definitely the most matches, 6 matches on this show, starting out with a debut for Stardom. I'm sorry.
Well, before we do that, there was
I'm sorry.
Some action in between shows. There was a little bit of story in between shows in that Nagisa Nosaki, who at the time in 2011 was part of the Diana roster, the brand new promotion Diana, came to visit the gym, the training gym, I believe, to see Nanae Takahashi, and she wanted to ask her for a match, and she was accompanied by the founder of Diana, Kyoko Inoue. So Nosaki had been a Neo women's wrestler for that promotion, as we've talked about on the first episode. Neo folded and closed at the end of 2010. Stardom acquired their high-speed belt, but Kyoko Inoue had founded Neo many years back, and so she was starting Pro Wrestling Diana. They were going to have their debut show on April 27th of 2011. So Nosaki came to the gym to challenge Nanae to a match. It was actually a rematch. They had a match in Neo that had been decided controversially. Nanae had won by referee decision. I actually looked up that match and I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. I don't know exactly what happened, why the referee had to make that decision. But Nosaki came and challenged her to a rematch for that debut Diana show, which Takahashi agreed to. I also looked for that debut Diana show, which did air on Samurai TV. I know that. If anyone knows where that footage is, let me know, because I'd love to watch that Nosaki Takahashi match, which was then booked. It was agreed to. Takahashi agreed, and they would wrestle on Diana's debut show on April 27th.
It rules that they brought in Nanae, the outsider, to win her match.
Yeah, and it was an interesting show. It also had right above it in the semi-main was Meiko Satomura against a 15-year-old Seri.
Oh, so, wow.
A very young Seri going up against Meiko Satomura. So that's another reason why, if someone knows where that show is, I would love to see it, because that's another match I'm super interested in seeing. As I said, it did air on Samurai TV, but I looked around for it in sort of the places I thought that it may be and couldn't find it. So maybe someone has it on tape or something like that. If you do, let me know.
And now that Sari's wrestling career is over, it would be really fun to go back to the beginning of it and see what she was like.
Yeah. Farewell. A farewell to Sari by watching the beginning.
All right, so I apologize for skipping ahead in the notes. I got to get all my notes in one place. I'm looking at too many different screens here. So, April 10th, 2011, we're back in Shinkiba First Ring, and there is a debut for Stardom, at least, as Dash Chisako takes on Eri Susa in the first match. And Dash here is wearing a sweet Chargers 49ers Super Bowl shirt. She also just generally has the style of every girl I wanted to date in 8th grade. It's excellent style, and she wins the match with a frog splash.
Yeah, it was good to see her. This is the beginning. This is her only match she'll have this year for Stardom, but she will be back in and out of the promotion for the next few years. A lot of times with her sister, they were a fairly well-known tag team for a few years. But yeah, I thought it was good. Another one, I thought Eri looked pretty good. She had some nice kicks out of the corner. And I have a note that I don't understand anymore. I wrote, of course we get all of this. I don't know what that means.
But presumably that this isn't a clipped match, even though it's the opener.
That is what it is. I'm like, we got all 12. How long was it? 12 something?
Yeah.
It's just another thing where I'm just sort of confused by what gets clipped and what doesn't get clipped. So, yeah, we did get the entirety of the match. It was not clipped.
Well, not a lot of clipping on this show, generally, I don't think. There was a few moments where you can tell they kind of moved from like one spot to another, and we missed something. Like, I can't remember which match it is, but there's one where they're like on the outside, and then we immediately see them back in the ring. But the same person who was, on top is still on top. So I'm not really sure how much time we've lost.
Right.
Hard to say. Next up, Haruka taking on Nanae Takahashi. It went to a time limit draw, but Haruka got a nice little red headband from Nanae afterwards.
Yeah, it was very cute. I actually really enjoyed this match, so I've come back to these Haruka matches. There was one point when Nanae put a cravat on Haruka, and it looked like she was going to pop her head off. It looked like she was just going to twist, and the whole... I don't know if it's because Haruka's so young that her head is very small, but I was like, wow, that looks very painful to me. So, in a way, she was like a kuru kuru pa because her head was spinning.
Kuru kuru pa. Kuru kuru pa. This was definitely the most, like... I don't know if it was the most serious, but it was like... there was something to this. They're yelling at each other. They're kind of posing off. It was a lot of fun. I agree with you.
Yeah, there was, instead of slapping each other, which would probably not look great slapping an 8-year-old, they slapped themselves a lot. They, would stand and they'd go, ah, and they would slap themselves. So, working around the restraints of wrestling an 8-year-old fairly well.
Next up was Mayu Iwatani taking on Natsuki Taiyo. Taiyo won with a moonsault. So, I don't know. This is like where you see the real awkwardness of Mayu in some ways in this match. Like she does I don't know. Was she faking the dive, but she did it awkwardly, so then it was hard to tell what the fuck she was doing?
She just sort of ran into the ropes and stopped. Right. Nowadays you see someone run into the rope and then they do the roll back and they do a pose and then they meant to do that. That was on purpose. But she just sort of ran into the ropes and stopped and was like, oh.
And did like a goofy like smile afterward. It was very Mayu. Now, on one of the earlier shows, she actually did some sort of feint, that made it seem more purposeful. So I think I don't think she intended to die, but I do think she fucked up what she was trying to do.
Yeah, very possible.
Just the charming Mayu, goofiness.
I had one note that was it was about the match, but not really. Shinkiba is very poorly lit in these shows. Because at one point they go to the top rope, and I felt like I couldn't see them on the top rope. I was like, why is there... I'm trying to remember how old Shinkiba was at this point. Just wondering if it was so new that they hadn't figured out exactly how to light these shows. But I was like, I can't see them on the top rope. They're technically in the ring, and I can't really see them. And also a question of, Iris did that dive on the Osaka show, which I was sort of like, oh, people doing dives. There's not a lot of dives going on. I wonder if that's because the lighting was so poor outside the ring that they didn't want to bring people outside and not be able to see what was going on.
I will say Stardom is still bad to this day at filming shows, so it's hard to say who to blame.
That is very true. So yes, it could have been Stardom's fault, but you would think the lighting setup would be the same and you would just come in and say, turn the lights on.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I also loved Taiyo just doing weird shit to Mayu's leg while she had her in the single crab. That was funny. She's just scratching her leg.
Oh yeah, didn't she pinch it? She tried to
Yes.
pinch her kneecap at one point.
Yes. And she finally bit it, of course, as the grand finale. So that was fun. Then we got Yusuke Aikawa taking on Arisa Hoshiki. I thought this was a good match, and it had a fun little finishing stretch with Aikawa blocking Arisa's Brazilian kick, hitting her with a stunner, and then a spin kick for the win.
Yeah, I also wrote the finishing sequence was great. I actually went back a little bit where Arisa blocked a Yusupon kick, then did the crane kick, and then hit that top rope finisher and got kicked out, and then they went into what you just mentioned. The one thing about Yusuke that I've noticed is that it seems like she struggles a bit transitioning from sort of moment to moment in some of these matches, where she'll sort of do something, it's like, oh, we're fighting in the corner, and now the next sequence is going to be, I throw you into the opposite corner and I do something. It sometimes seems like she does something, and then there's a moment when she has to come back and be like, okay, the next thing I have to do is this. And then she remembers and she goes into it, but there's like a weird, I guess, pausing going on, I guess I would call it, where it's like, what's next? Oh yeah, it's this. And then they go into it and it's fine. It just seems like a weird struggle with her ability to go from moment to moment in each of these matches, especially prominent in a singles match, where in a tag match, oftentimes you can say, oh, what am I doing? Oh, I'm tagging out my partner. And then you're out of the ring and you don't really have to worry about it. So it's a little bit more covered up there. But I guess if I had any complaint about her, it would be that there does seem to be sort of a bit of a thinking going on from moment to moment in these matches.
I think that's fair. We see a lot different version of her in the singles matches than in the tag matches, where she could probably cover it up a little more, as you said. But still, for like a brand new wrestler, very good.
Oh, yes, very good. It's not a major thing. It doesn't totally derail the matches, as you've seen by the fact that I've given her already 2, 3, 4+ star matches. But it is something where you're like, oh, there is, she doesn't have it all together. So there is a bit of room for growth.
Next up was Yoko Bito taking on Mika Nagano, returning. We've missed her for the last 2 shows. She's back. And she wins with a cross arm breaker. I thought this was a surprising finish.
I thought this match rocked. I thought it was awesome. It was pretty much like a shoot style, like sort of MMA fight with Mika going for all these submissions and Yoko just kicking her. I thought it was really good. Mika was, at this point, I looked this up, she had a MMA fight with Deep Jules in the middle of May. So I think after this match, she leaves and she does that match. And then after that's over, she comes back to Stardom at the end of May. And I'm sure that's what was happening, why she missed those 2 shows, because maybe she was training for that upcoming fight. I thought it was really good. Yoko at one point had Mika down and just started kneeing her in the spine, which looked very painful. Mika went for a couple of jumping arm bars, which I thought looked really cool. So I thought this was really good. I went 3 3/4 on this match. I just thought it was really exciting. It was quick. It didn't overstay its welcome. Very good. Very good for me.
Yeah, I also really like this match. I'm a big Mika Nagano fan. I think we're running out of pro wrestling matches for her, sadly. But yeah. I'm on board. I mean, if this were happening in real time, I would just have her pegged as a huge star in pro wrestling. So I'll have to go back at some point and see if I can find info about why she left, presumably to fight. I don't know.
Well, I actually looked it up because after I finished the show, I was like, oh, let's look it up. She was in Deep Jules. Well, she was in Jules, which is part of Deep. Deep is like the men's side, I believe, and Jules is the women's MMA side. And there was some thought for a while that she was going to be sort of becoming one of the top people in the promotion. At one point, I think she ran off something like 5 wins in a row in MMA, and there was some thought that she was going to become very big. So I'm sure that's why she left. Now, she never won any titles. Eventually, she never won any titles, and she sort of retired for a period as someone who sort of was like, oh, this person had a lot of potential and never really got to where everyone thought she would be. But she was considered a major player in Jules for some period of time. She actually returned to MMA. She had a match in June of last year, and she actually wrestled on the Ryzen show that had Floyd Mayweather on it. She had a match on that show that she lost. So she has done things recently. She did leave for a period of time. I think she left for 2 or 3 years, but she is back. But from what I read in sort of my basic internet search on her is that she was for a period considered to be a rising star in the promotion. So I'm sure they told her that, and they were like, hey, you've got to focus on MMA and forget this wrestling stuff, where I don't know how Stardom saw her, if they saw her as a star or just someone to sort of fill out the mid card. So I have a feeling that's probably why she ended up leaving Stardom and wrestling, although she does return for one show in 2013. Spoilers.
Come on, Taylor. Jesus. I also, I have no real appreciation for what the money was like in wrestling or in MMA at that point in Japan. So, perhaps she was on a path just to do better financially in MMA.
Yeah, I don't know what those paydays were like, although they were largely, and I think they might still largely run sort of the typical wrestling venues you think of when you think of Japan. I mean, Korakuen Hall. I think this May fight that she had coming up in 2011 was at Korakuen Hall. I know she's wrestled at Shinjuku Face, not wrestled, but had an MMA match at Shinjuku Face. So they weren't a huge promotion. I mean, they could run Korakuen, but there's a lot of sort of smaller promotions that can run Korakuen, but they weren't running huge venues. So I don't know what the money was like. Maybe they had more backing and they could pay her better, but yeah, it's an interesting question because, as we've talked about, she seems to have a lot of potential in wrestling. She's been very good.
This is probably the most Mika Nagano has ever been discussed on a podcast.
I don't know. Maybe there's a Deep Jules deep dive.
Oh, that'd be good. I also saw she fought for a promotion called Smack Girl.
Yeah, Smack Girl, which then became Jules.
Oh, okay.
That was like the proto Jules. But yeah, Smack Girls. I looked up every match she had, trying to find them on YouTube. I found one where she fought to a draw at Shinjuku Face with a German fighter. But there aren't that many matches. I was hoping that maybe I could find this May fight that she was in so I could watch it and, see what she was like, compare how was she in wrestling with how was she in MMA at the same time. But unfortunately, couldn't find it.
Her nickname is Future Princess.
Well, and now she's 36, so maybe it's past Princess.
Wow.
It's
a little problematic, I think, Taylor, but we'll move on. We'll move on from that. I mean,
well, in MMA, it's it's a young person's sport.
It is. That's
just like many sports are young people sports. Not curling, but
what about podcasting?
Podcasting is an all-age sport.
It's definitely a sport. The competition is real. So the main event of this show, Nanae Takahashi taking on Yoshiko, built, the payoff to the storyline I've built in my head. And Nanae wins with I'm going to call it a backdrop driver. She wins, and Yoshiko is unable to fulfill her dream of conquering the more, model type more feminine parts of the promotion.
In what is this? How long was that first tag match? Is this the longest? This is definitely the longest singles match in the history of the promotion. Is it the longest match? How long was that first tag match?
Pretty similar, I would say.
It was very long. I was shocked. I actually sent Aaron a message saying, comparatively, if you think about all of wrestling that happens, this is still a short show compared to some of the other shows we've seen that are like maybe 35 minutes of wrestling. This was a long show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything else. When you're used to being able to watch these shows in like 40 minutes, it's like, man, this show's long. These matches feel long. And it probably hurt my enjoyment of some of the matches just because, like, normally if I loaded up a show and it was an hour and 10 minutes and the matches were 12 minutes, I would be like, hell yeah, this is like a quick watch, but I was expecting something shorter here. And so it kind of made me probably like it less than I would have.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I sort of felt myself zoning out a little bit like, oh, okay. And I think it's the same thing. You had the nice story. I didn't think to make a headcanon for myself. So I was sort of like, oh, there's not really a story. I wasn't really surprised that Nanae won. She's sort of, at this point, I guess you would call her the ace of the company just because she's the most experienced. She's not a rookie, and she has some experience and accolades in her past. So not really a shocking result for me.
No, not at all. But we'll kind of see where it goes. And, the story that I made up, we'll see how it continues to play out. So I think this brings us to our rookie rankings, Taylor.
Yes.
I was told this past week that our debut version of the rookie rankings were the most non-Dave Meltzer audio this person had ever heard, which I think is probably fair for how much we bumbled around that segment.
It took us about 5 minutes to figure out that there were 8 rookies in the promotion. So yes, I would agree. I would definitely call it bumbling.
Okay, so I don't have your rankings from last week here on the notes.
I have my rankings in my notes. Are we doing last week?
No, I'm just saying we should recap where we were before.
Oh, I have mine. I can recap, unless you want to do both of them.
No, tell us, what were your rankings last time?
So my rankings were, I'm just going to go 8-1. 8 was Eri Sousa, 7 was Iris, 6 was Mayu, 5 was Mika Nagano, 4 was Arisa, 3 was Yoshiko, 2 was Yoko Bito, and number 1 was Yusuke Aikawa.
Okay, all right. I had Erisusa 8th, Iris 7th, Mayu Iwatani 6th, Arisa 5th, Mika Nagano 4th, Yoko Bito 3rd, Yoshiko 2nd, Aikawa 1st. So mostly pretty similar.
Yeah.
There's going to be some changes in mine this time around.
There are some changes in mine as well.
Okay, well, let's start with number 8. Who's your number 8 this week?
Number 8, sorry to do it to you, Aaron, is Iris. Now, she gets 8th, but now she's gone, so this will be the last time. I would assume will be the last time we include her on these rankings. So, unfortunately, she ends in last place on her last time.
She also ends number 1 in my heart.
Which is the most important place to finish number 1.
Exactly. I mean, I've got to put Iris 8th too. I'm sorry, Iris.
Wow.
I know.
The betrayal.
She wasn't very good on these shows, and I have to be serious about these rankings.
Well, thank you for taking these rookie rankings very seriously, as they deserve.
I would. Yes, I would always. Who do you have in 7th?
In 7th, I have Eri Sousa. So Eri Sousa gets to move up a little bit. She was a little bit better, but still, I think, lags behind everyone else in the promotion.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to put Eri here too, but I think the tiers are changing around. Like, I think poor Iris is probably in a tier by herself, as she should be. She belongs on her own mountain. But Airi is kind of moving up, for me on these shows, moving up closer to where Mayu and Arisa are.
Interesting. I don't know that I agree. I think she's sort of still on a tier by herself.
I mean, I do think they're both better than her. I'm just saying that she's getting closer to them over these shows. I mean, I think she made a drastic improvement from the first sets of shows that we watched to this show. These shows, rather.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm just trying to think of the three of them, how close I would. I mean, she did get closer sort of by default. I don't know that she could have gotten farther away without, being terrible. But sure, I'll go with you. Sure.
Wow. Okay.
Whatever you say, Aaron. Whatever you say.
All right, sixth.
Sixth, I have Arisa. Arisa falling quite a bit from my rankings last week. I just thought, not that she was bad, I just thought there were some people who passed her by a little bit.
I'm going to do something shocking here at sixth place. But, for pure inactivity, I got to drop Mika Nagano down.
Wow.
I just think Mayu and Arisa continued to show, where they are, how they're doing, that they're improving. And Mika, only had the one very short match. We're still not seeing that she can handle herself in a 10-minute match, 8-minute match. I mean, this match is like 5 minutes long. So I got to drop her down.
Controversial. Wow. So we are really I think we're really going to diverge this week based on that. Because my number 5 is Mayu Iwatani. So Mayu actually moves up a ranking, but still closer to the bottom half, but sort of moving up slowly.
Well, I'm also going to have Mayu in fifth. I mean, she continues to... I don't know. I'm not sure that I saw as much as you did in these shows from Mayu. I still think she's very awkward, which, I mean, she will be for the rest of her career. But I don't know. I still, which I'm going to have Arisa ahead of her, obviously. I just still think Arisa looks better in the ring to this point.
Interesting. Okay. My number 4 is Mika Nagano. I have to say, she had a good match. She had, on the show, I think, yes, my second favorite match of these 3 shows. And it's okay. It was short. I don't mind that. I just think she's good. And I'm trying not to bias myself from the fact that I know that she has such few time left. I think if I didn't know that at this point, if I was just sort of going in blind, I would say, wow, she's got a lot of potential, and hopefully she shows up more and more in the promotion.
All right, where are you? Oh no, you did Mika there. I'm doing Arisa there, fourth. She's my favorite of that tier right now. Arisa, Mayu, Mika. I'm kind of lumping them together.
Oh, interesting. So that for you is tier. Wait, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the tier?
No, 4, 5, 6 is the tier.
Oh, and 7 is a tier by itself.
Yes.
Got it. And 8, of course,
is...
If Aaron could create a Mount Rushmore of Stardom, it would be 4 pictures of Iris.
Yes, absolutely.
My number 3 is going to be Yoshiko.
Wow.
Yeah. Controversial, but I just think the 2 people ahead of her, I just feel much more excited about based on the matches that they have had. That's really what it boils down to, is that it's really about the 2 people ahead of her. I would say, if I were doing tiers, I would think these top 3 are in one tier, definitely. Sort of by themselves, and I think at this pretty far ahead of the lower tiers.
I agree that is the tier, and my reasoning is similar to yours, that I just kind of have the other two ahead of Yoko Bito. So it's not that she did anything worse on these shows. It's just how I feel about the other two.
All right. Well, we are pretty close because I have Yoko Bito number 2. I just thought she was really great on the show, and I think it probably boils down to really liking that the main event tag on that first show. I really liked it, and of course she was heavily involved, so I think that's probably what pushed her ahead of Yoshiko for me. I just think she looks really good. She sort of got a solid look with the outfit. She has the kicks, so she has sort of something to lean on. So that's why I put her at number 2.
Well, here's the big difference in our rankings. I have moved Yusuke Aikawa down to second.
Wow.
In my rankings.
Ugh, disgusting.
I know, but I just thought she was a little rougher on these shows than she had been in the other sets of shows that we watched. So it felt like the right time to push her down in the rankings.
Well, I had Yusuke Aikawa at number 1. And I mean, to me, it wasn't even a debate that she would be number 1. I think, and I didn't mention this earlier, although I had it in my notes, I think that she sort of has the sort of personality and aura that a lot of these other younger wrestlers are missing, where they have sort of pieces and parts of what you need to be a good wrestler, but they don't have the entire thing. Like Yoko Bito, I think is really good, but in that first tag match, in the main event tag match, she sort of came in and she was looking ready to fight, but it was sort of like a sort of timid looking, okay, we're getting in the ring and I'm getting ready, where Aikawa sort of just comes in and is like, I'm ready to go. And so that's what pushes her over the top for me, in that I think that she's definitely got the most aura of any of the young wrestlers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. Well, I do disagree with it, actually, I guess, because I think my number 1, Yoshiko, has more of an aura than Aikawa does, and is more put together in the ring. But it just kind of comes down to what I said earlier, that Yoshiko feels fully formed. She knows who she is. The character is fleshed out. She feels like Yoshiko. I know who she is. I know what her, motivations are. Like, I get all that from her already. And I don't get that from Aikawa. And that's not necessarily her fault yet, because they haven't really given us any stories or anything to sink our teeth into. But Yoshiko just feels more fully formed to me at this point.
Well, wow, we really diverged. After last week, we were pretty close to each other. We really diverged this week.
I'm starting to wonder if we remain in close enough company to use the word Kuru Pa. All right. I thought that was funnier when I thought about it. It was when I said it, which so often happens to me.
Well, you got to give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care, obviously.
You got to try.
I say lots of dumb shit on this and every podcast I'm on. So that is what we're going to talk about regarding Stardom. Normally we would talk about our recommended matches, but, there's not a lot of matches happening. So just tell us, Taylor, what shows are upcoming of modern Joshi.
So coming up is Choco Pro has a few shows coming up. We're recording this on Saturday the 16th. So Choco Pro has a show that is airing in the States Eastern time tonight. So by the time this comes out, it will have aired. And they have 3 other shows, I believe, coming up in the next 2 weeks. And you can follow the Gato Move Twitter for that. They did have one show that they unfortunately had to cancel. Don't know if that show will be rescheduled for another time. We'll see. DDT had a show today featuring Saki Akai versus Saori Ano. That's one I'm definitely looking to check out. They had a mixed tag match last week on DDT's show. Now they're having a singles match as part of Saki's 7-match trial series. So you can catch that on Wrestle Universe, no longer DDT Universe. Although I think the link is still ddtpro.com/universe. Ice Ribbon had a dojo show today, and they will have a dojo show next Saturday as well, as they wrap up their IWGQ title tournament with 2 triangle ribbon matches, 3-way matches that will lead to a one-on-one final to crown the returning IWGQ champion. So that will probably take place. There's one of the triangle ribbon matches was on the show today. I'm assuming the next one will be the following week, and then the finals will be the week after that. Also keep your eyes peeled. I don't believe they've announced any additional Peace Party shows, but they probably will do that coming up. And of course, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, Stardom discussing having no fan shows in some capacity at the end of May. We don't know if that means in a week or in 2 weeks, or we're not quite sure yet. So we may be able to cover it on the next show, depending on when that show happens. And I believe that is it for modern wrestling, but you can follow a lot of different promotions. Pro Wrestling Wave is putting up a lot of classic matches. They actually put up this week one of my favorite joshi matches ever, and maybe my favorite Wave match, which is in 2018 in the Catch the Wave tournament. They had a block decider between 3 wrestlers, Arisa Nakajima and Masaki Ohata were in that match. Ayako Hamada was the 3rd wrestler. It's a really unique match where it's 3 wrestlers. They each have singles matches against each other, and you have to pin both your opponents in back-to-back singles matches in order to win the match. So a lot of chaos as, you pin one person and a fresh wrestler comes in and you have to beat them as well. One of my favorite matches of all time. And unfortunately, when it happened in 2018, Ayako got in trouble with the law, and Wave took the match down, I think 2 or 3 days after the match had occurred. So very few people saw it. It made my match of the year list, but many people weren't able to see it. But it is now on the Wave YouTube channel. Check that out. And places like Tokyo Joshi and Oz and Wave Again are doing a lot of Zoom hangouts, videos on their YouTube channels. So check them out. Actwres Girls just rebooted their YouTube channel. They've been uploading videos as well, in addition to the streaming service they just started. So lots of things to check out if you're looking for Joshi wrestling content.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for us. We will presumably be back in 2 weeks talking about more old wrestling, unless, something crazy happens that allows us to talk about some new shows. We'll see when those Stardom shows are going to be up, because I guess that could be around the time we'd be recording next. So maybe that'll work out. We'll find out.
Yeah, and we don't know if there'll be full shows, if there'll be just a few matches. We don't really have any information, but as if they air and they are full shows, I would imagine that we will definitely cover those on this show.
Absolutely. We'll see if it's enough content to get us a whole show worth. We'll find out. Follow along at JBomb Audio on Twitter. We've gotten even worse at that Twitter account, but we will let you know what we're going to talk about if there's old wrestling for you to catch up on before the show. I'll post today what we're going to talk about, or what we already talked about on this show before it's going to come out. And you can find me at Aaron Like the Car. Taylor is at Tay Mambo. Subscribe to the show, give us a rating, give us a review, and that's pretty much it. So until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.